Hello, and welcome to another episode of Average Joe Sports, Apple Cup edition. Hey now, it's Thanksgiving, also it's coming up. Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chickens, turkeys, you name it. Ooh, that's my favorite holiday of the year, but not as favorite as my favorite game of the year in Apple Cup. Last year I talked about how exciting Apple Cup was because Apple Cup actually had something on the line. And this year is more of the same. You have got my number 18 University of Washington Huskies versus the number 13 team, WSU. Both teams are coming in at 6-2. Wazoo's coming in off the bye. I know some Husky fans like to sit there and complain about that from time to time and go, well, how come Wazoo got the bye right before Apple Cup? That seems lame. Well, I'll give you this. At least Wazoo took a bye week and actually, had some rest, unlike, Alabama, who had that killer game against Mercer. Ooh-wee! Strength schedule and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Play your out-of-conference teams at the beginning of the year like everybody else, unless you're playing a team like Notre Dame. It's the only exception, plain and simple. That's just how it is. But anyway, enough about Alabama. They don't need any more time on my podcast vlogosphere thing. But again, starting out from the top, UW coming in at 6-2 with a fresh win against Utah. I wouldn't say it's a fresh win, and I won't lie to you, I wasn't very impressed with it. A 33-30 win against a Utah team that's just struggling to try to get that 6th win and get a bowl game. Hopefully they can get it this week and get that 6th win and go on to a bowl game. But they weren't able to get it last Saturday against us, and so that's good. In that game, Jake Browning went 26 for 35 for 354 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also did have 1 fumble. Again, I've been saying this for the last couple of years. Jake needs to not hold the ball like it's a loaf of bread, because that makes defense slap at it. They don't actually necessarily have to sack you. They just got to knock it out of your hand, and that's an extra possession for their offense. So we got to watch that going into the game against Wazoo on Saturday. Just some quick highlights here. Myles Gaskin on the receiving side, actually he had a pretty big game considering the what I like to call the piss poor outing that they had. Gaskin came in with 6 receptions for 114 yards and a touchdown. Dante Pettis also had 6 receptions for 94 yards. He was actually really killer going into the last 2 minutes, into that 2-minute drill, going into that field goal by Mr. Tristan Vizcaino, who I will get into later. Also, Gaskin had a great game on the rushing end. He had 17 carries, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. Followed by Levon Coleman. He had 6 carries of his own for 34 yards. So again, you got a Myles Gaskin coming in as a finesse back. He's gonna deke and dunk you and get to the outside. And you've got Levon Coleman, who's coming in and gonna punch you in the mouth right at the middle. So again, those are 2 completely contrasting running styles that tend to work for the pro style offense that Chris Peterson tends to like to run. Rarely do I ever take the time to mention a kicker, because I've always had this credo that as long as the kicker is making his field goals, no one really cares who he is, and in most cases that is the thing. But Tristan Vizcaino's been a little shaky. Apparently the guy can't kick at night, but he had an okay game. He went 2 for 3 on actual field goal attempts, and then he went 3 for 4 on point afters, which they're not doing the new point afters that the NFL is doing. They're still stuck in what the old NFL, the old spot, which I can't remember the yardage as of right now. But he did manage to redeem himself after missing a point after with a 38-yard field goal to ice the game for the Dogs. And I give him all the credit in the world. I do. To be able to come back from as many misses as he's had, to be able to ice it for the team, I think is wonderful. I do. My friends that I talked to on Facebook Messenger know that I wasn't exactly excited about the game, and I actually I made a few. I made a big comment saying that my team was slowly turning into a dumpster fire on Facebook. I was then proven wrong, which again, I take my lumps, like any other person who was upset with his team at the time, and I took my lumps like a man, so to speak, and I didn't take down my post. I still explained that, hey, despite the fact that win's a win, you can still be unsatisfied with said wins. So I'm gonna get more into that in keys of the game, but we're gonna take a quick break and so I can reset that up for y'all. Peace. All right, and we are back. So I didn't really take a whole lot of time to talk about what Wazoo did last week because again, they were on bye. They also played Utah. They won in a much more convincing fashion. I didn't write the score down because it didn't seem necessary because it happened 2 weeks ago. But just some quick things on WSU. Sorry, I'm setting my timer here so that way I'm not bending your ear for 30 hours. But Luke Falk on the season, this season is he's got 320 out of 479 completion attempts for 3,224 yards, which I believe is either a Washington State University record or I believe that could also be the Pac-12 record. That part, I'm not sure. I'm sure you'll be glad to tell me in the comments below on my YouTube page. And he's got 29 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Again, why does he have such high stats as a passer? Well, that's just how the air raid offense works. They've got a bunch of receivers, and again, he's throwing the ball everywhere. It's not like any defense, let alone the Husky defense, can focus on 2 or 3 guys. They got to focus on 5 or 6 guys because it's not just the receivers who are out there in the passing game. It's also the running backs. A key thing for them has been that they've actually added a running game that's actually been useful enough. Right. I mean, they're not running any team out of the building, but they have the running game set up to where it's successful enough that you actually have to pay attention to it. So that's going to be a key thing going into that. But that's why I didn't give you much of a big diagnostic when it came to WSU's record, because again, we got a bye week. There's not a whole lot to talk about. But in the last 3 or so minutes here, we're going to talk about basically the tail of the tape. Basically, just a quick synopsis of what each team does. Wazoo scores 33 points per game. UW 36.5 points allowed on this. Again, these are season stats here. These are season averages. Points allowed, 22.9 points allowed to 14.5 points allowed. Again, staunch defenses on both sides. I mean, 22 or 23 points, really, if you want to round up. 23 points a game actually isn't that bad when you think about it. Let's see here. Total offensive yards, Wazoo has 455.6, and then UW has 410.8. For Wazoo on the pass, they're getting 375.3 yards on the pass and 80.4 yards on the ground. UW's coming with a much more even game plan with 233.5 yards in the passing game and 177.3 yards on the run. Now again, what does that tell you? Well, again, air raid offense is going to be primarily focused on again in the air. And like I said earlier, that they have a running game that's good enough to keep you on your toes. And again, another part of the running game that's not a part of that rushing stat is dink and dunk passes, screen passes, that and those short, like 2 yard routes, just dragging the defense across the flat and getting those small numbers. So that's something that is going to be beneficial for Wazoo. It's something that UW's definitely going to have to watch out for. Again, versus UW is coming in with a much more even pro set style of offense. They're going to use the run to use the run to make the pass better, and actually vice versa. They're going to try to spread you out. They're going to try to spread you out deep so they can run the ball underneath you, and they're going to try to bring you in so then they can so that they can go deep. But yeah, this is going to be a key thing. Actually, oddly enough, I think a key factor here, believe it or not, is going to be the kicking game. WSU doesn't necessarily they definitely don't have a punter, because I know their punter is also a receiver on the team. So again, if you're a kicking specialist, Wazoo obviously isn't exactly the place you want to go to. But they don't do a lot of field goals. They don't do a lot of punting. They like to go for it on first down. Statistically, they say that it's into your advantage to not kick on fourth down. So so yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how that's gonna mesh. And I've always said, at the end of the day, you take the records, you take the rankings, you throw them out the window, because in Apple Cup, you just don't know what's going to happen. That's my time for the tail of the tape. When we come back, we're going to do what I think the predictions are and key losses. Alrighty, so I guess it's that time for me to give a prediction. And I'm giggling to myself because for Apple Cup vlogs that I've done in the past, I never give an actual prediction of who's going to win this game. Mainly because I hate the I told you so's. I do. I won't lie. And two, man, you just don't know what's going to happen. Again, in the past, again, I was my rookie year in band. I go, Wazoo was ranked 3rd in the country, and they lost in a very shady double overtime play. But again, we won, as in the Dogs. They won. So that's important. So obviously, rank doesn't really matter. But the key thing on the line for Wazoo is they're looking to become kings of the North. And so if they win, if Wazoo wins, they actually win the Pac-12 North title, which then concludes that the road to the Pac-12 North goes through the Northwest. And because Wazoo beat Stanford, I believe, early in the season, they have game in hand. So the downside is, if I remember correctly, if Wazoo loses this game, they actually finish 3rd in the Pac-12 North, and Stanford then becomes the Pac-12 North champion because, well, they beat UW last week. Not last week, but the week before. So there's a lot riding on the line, which makes Apple Cup so much more exciting, right? And, I'm not as confident in my Dogs this time around that as I have been in the last 3 or 4 years. Again, Falk's looking really good this year. You got this guy on defense for Wazoo, Hercules Mataafa, which is a great name. It sounds like he should be a wrestler or like a hitman or a defensive back. So it makes sense with a name like that. I've had the liberty to watch Wazoo over the course of the season, and they're looking really complete. In my opinion, they're actually peaking at the right time. Again, they've had an extra week to prepare with the bye week, which could be an advantage or it could be a disadvantage depending on what happens. I think in order for Wazoo to really take a step and actually win this game, they're going to need a couple of things. One, they're going to have to be able to make UW extremely one-dimensional. As much as I trust Browning's arm, I don't actually believe that he can actually win the game on a consistent basis with just his arm. I know a lot of my Husky faithful out there are going to say, well, did you watch the game last week? And I will say, yes, I did watch the game last week. I watched the entire second half. I was at a wedding in the first half, but I watched the entire second half. But I also saw that Browning can be shook. He can. It's not easy to do, but there are times where that can happen. So if they can somehow snuff out the running game for UW with Myles Gaskin and Levon Coleman. That'll be a key thing to make the offense one dimensional. Also, by also forcing a lot of 3 and outs, I think that's going to be a key too. We're not going to worry about having this thing be 5 minutes long because I have a lot to say about this. I think another key thing outside of the kicking game, as well, and turning UW into a one-dimensional team, is also going to be that there's weaknesses in the defense in this game. UW's defense is coming in this week without, again for a second week, Azeem Victor. He's been suspended indefinitely for suspicion of a DUI charge, and which in the grand scheme, if it's just you or I on campus and get popped for a DUI is a DUI. But again, when you're a collegiate athlete in any sport, everything that you do is going to be magnified tenfold. So you can't just do dumb college kid stuff. You just can't and not expect to get in trouble for it. I applaud Chris Peterson for actually saying, "Hey, this is a serious matter, and it has to be taken as such." And by sitting Azeem Victor for both the Utah game and for Apple Cup, I think that sets the tone for the team. And again, it humbles everybody because if I remember correctly, this might have been Sark, but when Austin Seferian-Jenkins also got popped off season for a DUI. Yeah, it was the first game at Husky Stadium, so yeah, that was during Sark. So it's not the first time a star player has actually been suspended for a game, and it kind of hurt the Dogs. So I actually think this will actually be a bigger piece. Because that's with Azeem Victor, that's a big part of the defense. I mean, sure, you've got a lot of other stars, which again I didn't write it down, so I can't remember all the names off the top of my head, and I apologize to my Husky faithful. But with the holes in the defense, I think that's another spot that they can expose UW on. Also, if the defense has to be on the field a lot with 3 and outs, that's gonna prove damaging for the UW, and that's another key way that Wazoo can actually have the advantage. On the UW side, one thing that UW needs to do, and they haven't been doing the last couple of weeks, is to stop playing down to their opponents. Okay? Take every opponent very, very seriously. We lost to Stanford because we didn't take them seriously. We got outplayed. Versus at Arizona State. I understand that the Dogs haven't won a game at Arizona State in, I think, 8 years now or something like that. But still, Arizona State wasn't, in my opinion, there was a team that wasn't that good. The Dogs got out-coached. They got completely and totally outplayed. That game was completely winnable, and for some reason, they just weren't able to do it. So we got to stop with the knucklehead plays. They got to stop. They got to put their feet on the necks of Wazoo and keep playing for 4 quarters of football. Quite frankly, I'm sick of this. We're a second half team. Well, you know what happens when the second half team doesn't show up? We wind up losing those games. We need to play. We, as in the Dogs, need to play from the opening kick to the last whistle. Because let me tell you, Wazoo's got comebacks in the back of their sleeve. They've been able to do it. They had a double overtime win early in the season against Boise State, a game in which I fell asleep. I was like, oh, this game's over. They came back and went to double overtime, and they won. So, I mean, they got comebacks up their sleeve. This team Wazoo is a team that's never down and out. They may be down, but they're never out. And that's a teams like that are always scary. Another thing that I think Wazoo does have to be aware of, though, is that UW is playing with everything to gain and nothing to lose. Because they get to play spoiler in this game, which is something that in the last 4 or 5 years, UW hasn't had to really play spoiler to really anybody, and they haven't played spoiler to WSU to say. And this is something that'll be very, very interesting. ESPN.com has UW with a like a 85% advantage to chance to win the game. I don't believe in any of that garbage because I'm sure that both Wazoo and UW are going to come out ready to play. It's going to be a slobber knocker, to use a WWE term, and Jim Ross specifically. And I imagine, to be as cliche as humanly possible, the team who has the ball in their hands in the last 2 minutes of the game is going to be the team that wins. That's the best I can give you. That's the best prediction I can give you. I'm extremely nervous about this game, as I've probably said about 4 or 5 times. I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. Vizcaino, this game is at 5 o'clock Pacific. It is not a 7 p.m. kick, and it's a home game. I need you to be on it. You need to make every extra point and every field goal that you need to get, that you get the opportunity to kick, because points matter in this game, as it does every year in Apple Cup. You know, if the Dogs lose by 3 and you missed a field goal, hey man, you know, I'll take losing by 3 if you're perfect, Tristan. I will. I'll take losing by 3 if you were perfect. It's like, well, I mean, he was, you know, 6 for 6 on field goals, and and 4 for 4 on point afters. It just came down to the last play on a field goal, and that kick went straight through the uprights, and the Dogs lose. Okay, I can accept that because that won't be on you. But I need Vizcaino to be Johnny on the spot, even though your name is Tristan. So, yeah, like I said, with that, I'm going to actually end it on that note. And I know my buddy Trevor's going to be like, you got to pick somebody. Don't be a wuss. I got to be a wuss. I got to do it every year because it's crapshoot during Apple Cup. Take the rankings, take the winning streaks, take the records, throw them out the window because they don't matter. This is both teams are starting 0-0 for this game. That's just how it works. So anyway, go Dogs, beat the Cougs, and Sounders are up right now. They got 2 goals in the bank against FC Dallas. They play again on the 30th at home here in Seattle. Defend the Cup. Go Dogs, go Sounders.